The Boltor family has two prominent members. You have the Telos, which is more of a crit weapon and is sold by the Arbiters of Hexes, and the Prime, which recently got unvaulted and once upon a time was the weapon to have. Now it's time to see if the Prime can still pack a punch. Hey guys, hello and welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're going to be diving deeper into this Mastery Rank 13 primary weapon. I'm going to be covering a cheap build, as per the usual, something affordable that anybody can build, but of course we also have the classic endgame setup with a Riven. That being said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides follow a new player friendly approach, simply because there's a lot of info here and I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. But I also understand that you may be a veteran and not interested in all this new player stuff. You're invited to have a little patience or skip ahead. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Boltor Prime. Let's begin by having a look at how the weapon behaves without any mods equipped, and for that I'm simply going to be taking a couple of free shots. The Boltor Prime is an automatic projectile weapon, and as you can see it fires bolts, which is absolutely awesome because I'm going to be able to bolt enemies to walls and send them flying. Now the arrows do show up a little bit and the accuracy is quite nice, as is the rate of fire on the Boltor. However, as you will see, the reload is a tad long at 2.4 seconds. Let's jump into the stats to see precisely what we're dealing with. First of all, mod capacity is 60 out of 60, and if your Boltor Prime has only 30 out of 30, then jump into actions and install an autocane catalyst. This one can be found from alerts, invasions, and if you're lucky, from the daily sortie as well. Next, my Boltor Prime has been formatted a total of 5 times, but this was done only for the purpose of testing. For the weapon builds, I'm recommending you guys 2 free forma should cover it. By default, the Boltor Prime does come with 1 V and 1 Vazarin of all things. So if you get a Riven with a Vazarin, well, there you go. Accuracy is 50, which is not bad at all. This makes it somewhat viable for heavy caliber. Now let's have a look what heavy caliber does. You saw earlier how pinpoint accurate it was. Now let's put on heavy caliber, but not only that, let's slap on some multi-shot, because as you might know, it really hurts when you add some multi-shot, so split chamber and vigilante armaments for 150% multi-shot. And as you will see, it's starting to spray kind of all over the place. It's up to you if you're comfortable with this or not. Officially, I am not recommending it simply because you lose bolts and, well, therefore you lose damage, and you lose a lot of them as well. Very well, let's reset this. Critical chance is only 12%. Now I did try a full hybrid status and crit with the Boltor. It wasn't terrible. Definitely you can go for a bit of crit chance and crit damage if you so desire. Just keep in mind that it's not necessarily the most optimal of approach. But then again, if you manage to get a Riven with some crit, that might be more worthwhile. Keep in mind that if you want a crit Boltor, then look at the Telos, link in the cards now for easy mode GG. So if I was to slap on Point Strike with 150% crit chance, my crit chance goes only to 30%. Not really worth it, which is a crying shame because the crit multi is quite nice at 2.0x. We got a fire rate of 10.0 with a magazine of 60 and a reload of 2.4 seconds, and as I mentioned before, the only problem I take with the Boltor is the long reload time. Riven disposition of 2 out of 5 because the Boltors are very popular. The Telos is strong and the Prime, you'll see, is strong as well. Status chance of 34%, and this is where the weapon shines. And not only, you got only 2 damage types on the Boltor, you got puncture and impact, a large amount of puncture and a small amount of impact. I would have preferred if the impact was slash, but there you go, beggars can't be choosy. Keep in mind that puncture will deal extra damage to heavily armored targets, and that is a huge plus for the Boltor. Not only that, but having only 2 here means it's gonna be easier for me to proc the elemental I want, not having a third like slash, for example, compete for status procs. In any case, let's start slapping on some mods, and there's nothing more mandatory than damage. Serration, 165% extra damage. Then we're going to go with multi-shot, split chamber, and vigilante armaments. Out of the set bonus from vigilante armaments, we're not gonna get any real benefit because, again, we're not going into crit chance. This one would be a bit more suited to the Telos, but again, you are getting that 60% multi-shot plus split chamber. That's gonna mean 150%, meaning that at a click of a button, you're gonna be getting 2 guaranteed bolts plus a 50% chance at a third bolt. Next, we're gonna go into elemental damage, and elemental damage should always be applied depending on circumstances. For example, if you're going to fight Grenier, I would recommend you build corrosive, unless you know they're all gonna be equipped with alloy armor, in which case you build radiation damage. Radiation damage is also what you use against Eidolons. Considering that the Boltor Prime is a projectile-based weapon, I don't really recommend it against Eidolon fights, so keep that one in mind. In any case, today we're gonna be fighting the Grenier, but if you guys are going to fight the Corpus, for example, they have big shields, and against big shields you can build magnetic damage. However, a smarter idea, especially for a status weapon, would be to build magnetic or gas, which bypasses their shields entirely and deals damage to their health. When it comes to the infested, well, there's a lot of them, but they're pretty weak. I would recommend AoE weapons heavily modded into heat. You can take the Boltor Prime as well. Again, the infested have 4 health types, each with their own unique resistances and vulnerabilities, and you can check that info out on the wiki. In any case, we said we're gonna fight Grenier, so we're gonna build corrosive with electricity and toxin. Which should I add, the 60s or the 90s? In this case, we're gonna add both of them. Because again, we're not going into hybrid, we're not going into crit, which will open up a whole lot of mod slots. High voltage is the only expensive-ish mod on the list. This one can be farmed from in-game. The mission is called Na Elgar on the planet Eris. You'll have to find all the free secret caches, then upon extraction, you got about a 5% chance of getting this one or Shell Shock. Rest assured, you will need both of them. Shell Shock is the exact same thing, but only for shotguns. Very well, I got my electricity, let's go to Toxin. Infected clip, the 90 mod and the 6060 mod is called Malignant Force. This one is a lot more affordable, easy to obtain from Corrupted Vor in the Void, easy to farm, go for it. If not from the trade chat, 10 to 15 plat on PC, no more than 15. We still have one more mod slot left on the weapon, and this is what I like to call my option slot. But before we get into any of that, let's bring it back to how status procs and status priorities work in Warframe. Keep in mind that impact, puncture, and slash, the physical types, have a 4 times greater chance of proccing over elemental types such as corrosive. So when you're looking at your puncture, don't look at it as 272, look at it as 1,000 something. So in fact, it's higher than my corrosive, it's got a higher chance to proc. There's nothing really I can do about that unless I can reduce the puncture, because again, I got all the 4 corrosive mods already on the weapon, so keep that one in mind. Now when it comes to options, here's my favorite option, Shred. In the case of the Boltor Prime, at least 30% fire rate and 1.2 meters worth of punch through. Punch through currently in Warframe is a huge deal. Keep in mind that your projectiles will be traveling through your initial target and hit multiple targets. That is a huge benefit, and in Warframe you're gonna make plenty use out of this one, because enemies usually kind of clump up together, or perhaps you have a Nidus or a Vauban that can clump them up for you. So this is the option I'm recommending to you guys. However, if you guys just want more damage, you can deal with heavy caliber and the accuracy loss. At the end of the day, when it comes to close range shots, is not that big of a deal. You want a truck and a half of damage, then you can even go for prime cryo rounds if you have it. Once again, my option is Shred, at least in this case. This is the first build I'm recommending to you guys, so we're going to be spawning in Corrupted Heavy Gunner level 120. Yes, I can spawn higher level targets, but to be honest, higher than this, really pointless unless you're doing endurance runs. Now let's see what kind of damage we can... Oh, look at that. That is just freaking beautiful, isn't it? The Boltor Prime is still one outstanding weapon. Look at the damage it can do to these high level targets. It can absolutely shred. Now you will notice a bit of a difference when it comes to kill time and kill shots on these targets, simply because it's gonna matter on how many status procs you get. Now let's see if I can get rid of this guy like this. Go away. I didn't want to hit the guy behind him, but apparently I did. But again, it simply shreds. I believe that is obvious. I don't really need to tell you any more than this. If you're having doubts about this weapon, just go on ahead and get it. It is honestly an absolute beast, and I highly recommend it. If it can do this just with normal standard everyday mods, then go right on ahead and make the Boltor Prime quickly before it gets vaulted again. Next, so we're gonna have a look at a Riven setup. Yes, I did manage to get a Riven. Actually, I have 2 Rivens for this one. So let's talk about Riven priority a little bit, because I know some of you guys really care about this stuff. First and foremost, I don't think that Rivens are necessary for 99% of weapons. You don't need them. Honestly, the extra power they give you for the content that Warframe offers is not really required, but I also am aware that some of you simply want the most you can out of a weapon, so for that you're gonna need a Riven. Let's showcase 2 Rivens. First, this would be ideal. Well, it would be better for a Prime setup. Toxin damage, puncture, minus status duration. The minus status duration would have hurt me if I would have gone for a bleed build with higher crit chance, under Mumu, all that good stuff. But in my case, and this is gonna be a corrosive build, it doesn't really matter, so it doesn't really affect me. Here's another Riven. We got crit chance, crit damage, and multi-shot. Now this one is a lot more attuned to the Telos Boltor, which is a crit weapon. So again, if you want a Riven for the Boltor Prime, the stats priority from my point of view would be multi-shot, damage, and perhaps an element such as Toxin or electricity. Don't go for crit chance, crit damage, because again, you're playing with the base stat of 12% crit chance, which doesn't really help you. And as you can see, the build is pretty much the same as the elemental I showcased earlier. I dropped Shred and I plugged in the Riven with, again, dispo 2, so the values are not all that high. I lost my punch through, which in the case of the Boltor Prime really hurts me, but you will see the weapon is a tad better. Again, it's dispo 2, it's hardly worth it, but from my point of view, only dispo 1 weapons are not really worth getting a Riven for. Unless, for example, you're talking about the Hex Shotgun and you want to reach the 100% true status chance and you want to get the perfect Hex Riven, but that is just craziness. And as you can see, of course, the weapon can tear through these high-level targets without any problem at all. The Riven makes it, well, per single target damage, it makes it about 8 to 9% better, but when it comes to, well, multiple targets, no punch through will hurt you badly. So once again, please take into account Shred or Prime Shred. And that's gonna do it pretty much. One more thing before I go, let's pump up everything with Warframe buffs. And for that, I'm gonna need my favorite weapon specialist, and her name is Mirage Prime. But first, let me adjust my fashion. I cannot be seen like that. There we go. This is my favorite fashion for Mirage. I know some of you guys asked. Here you go. These are standard colors, nothing special, classic, saturated, all of them. As for the Boltor, no, we cannot look like this. There we go. That's a lot better. Now, as for those buffs I mentioned earlier, Rifle Amp will get you 27% extra damage to the Boltor Prime. Keep in mind, this is an aura, so everybody in your party will be receiving this benefit, and it is stackable ×4. However, when you're going up against Grineer, it's always a smarter choice to build. Where are you? Corrosive Projection, enemy armor reduced by 30%. Now, this is huge. Keep in mind, though, that Rifle Amp will grant its benefit regardless of the target. Now let's have a look at Arcanes. Arcanes are a lot more impactful than the Aura. Arcane Rage, R3, on headshot 10% chance for plus 120% damaged rifles for 16 seconds, and the usual +1 Arcane Revive. You can double stack these if you so desire, but you're not getting 240% extra damage, you're simply getting the 20% chance. You get it? So double stacking this, not the best of ideas. The 10% chance is more than enough to keep this one up throughout the fight. As for your second Arcane, you do have a bit of an option. You can go for Arcane Acceleration, which will reduce your kill time significantly, and it's not a bad idea. However, keep in mind that you will be bumping into that reload time of 2.4 seconds a whole lot faster. Perhaps Prime Fast Hands can fix that. Or you can go for Arcane Avenger, on damaged 14% chance for 30% crit chance for 8 seconds. This is an additive after bonus, meaning that by default my weapon has 12% crit chance with no mods on it. When I get the buff from Arcane Avenger, it's gonna go to 42%, and that is definitely significant. That is the power of additive after. Now let's test the weapon out like this. Once again, this is the Riven Setup with some heavy duty Warframe buffs. Kill off the remnants, unpause the AI, and let them hit me. Keep in mind that just because the AI was paused does not mean that they're taking extra damage, unless you're doing melee attacks. There we go. Mirage's third ability and her first ability, and now we're just gonna go through these guys like there's no tomorrow. You will see that this weapon is fully capable of annihilating a full pack of heavy duty enemies in just a couple of seconds. I don't know how powerful this weapon used to be, but from my point of view, it's still one beast of a weapon, and I highly recommend it. Keep in mind that the Riven disposition is only 2, okay, 2 out of 5, so you don't necessarily need to go out of your way to get a Riven for the Boltor Prime. It functions very well without it. You can build the elemental build I showcased earlier. Just keep in mind that you do need to adjust your elementals depending on your fight. If you don't do that, you're gonna be getting mediocre performance. In my case, this is working very well because these guys are equipped with ferrite armor, and I'm just chomping through it like there's no tomorrow. Other than that, that's gonna do it pretty much for the review. Once again, I highly recommend this weapon. My name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you have any feedback for me or would like to request a specific weapon review, then by all means leave it in the comment section down below. I can't realistically promise you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, but I will be reading through each and every comment. Until next time, guys, see you on Twitch. Bye bye.